Pyrrhon. I listened to this one Pyrrhon album time ago. It was pretty vicious, pretty unfriendly, but it was good. I rate this band. They do their thing. Not really thought about them in years though, so it's cool to check in with them and see what they're up to now. And I reckon they've only improved their craft with Exhaust. Notably, it feels like the mathcore element in their work has really took over. The music takes a million twists and turns. It's hard to clasp your hands around like a slippery fish. This is slippery fish music. Listen, I know my music. You man don't even be knowing about the vinyl collection. Shit's endless. I know my shit, so believe me when I say this is slippery fish music. The first song throws us straight into this hectic mental shit with these disharmonious guitars ringing alongside the chaos. Drumming is pretty cool. Maybe my favourite part of the album generally. It feels really aggro, and really it gets me into the energy of it all. Love all the switch ups and that throughout this song, and you get some actual melodies that, you know, they're still a little tapped, but they're more melodious than the dissonant lunatic playing that much of this is, and they're pretty cool. Generally, what I've just described is a microcosm of the whole album. It keeps things very fresh, with all the new directions it takes every like 15 seconds. I think this sort of mathcore type shit can be kinda hit or miss, but this one does well to be very engaging and not feel annoying in its constant switch ups. There's two vocalists here and they're both pretty good. The main vocalist, he comes at you with a lot of different deliveries and they all land really. Sometimes he'll straight up be like talking, just casually talking, but mostly he's shouting his lungs out. And then you have a guy who handles all the deep growling, which is pretty baller too, honestly. The songs are kind of like these shifting masses that are rarely pinned down into a formula, at least not for a notable amount of time. Some of it is surprisingly danceable in the bass lines and off-kilter guitars. Sometimes them guitars be squirming around everywhere in their lunacy, but mostly they serve to make the experience very jagged and angular. This album has its more atmospheric moments too, which are usually met with some of the more melodious playing. Closest as this album can reach to melodious anyway. And those moments end up feeling quite special and emotional within the brutality that is often the forefront of the music. Not gonna lie, I'm pretty convinced the first song is about Elon Musk, which is pretty cringe. It doesn't explicitly say his name or anything like that, but it's mocking some wannabe pioneer who wants to colonize Mars, so I think it's probably Elon Musk. It's a pretty good song though, and none of the lyrics are really cringe. I just fundamentally dislike hearing about Elon Musk really. Regardless, the lyrics across this album overall are pretty interesting to read. There's a song here called The Greatest City on Earth, which is probably my favourite song on the album, where the vocalist's car gets impounded, which is kinda hilarious. It reminds me of a Killdozer song actually. In this song, things just get worse and worse until our protagonist is just running through a sewage tunnel, not being able to understand why he can't just make it back home. It's funny to see such a humorous underbelly to some of these crazy songs that you could probably assume are like very edgy or something. You know, it all does feel quite dark and that. A lot of these songs are about being a low-level working class man and being pummeled by the world really. It kind of has the spirit of old school noise rock like Jesus Lizard or again Killdozer. You can hear it in the vocalist's delivery on Out of Gas for example. And the personality is just like this stressed out mess of a working man falling for mad psyops and going insane. Like there's this song about being a gambling addict, which also comments on the predatory nature of gambling establishments, being able to spot vulnerable people and keep them mentally ensnared. But really to me, it makes clear a kind of desperation, looking for a big break that will set him free, but he just sinks all of his hard-earned paycheck into it. The paycheck that he puts himself through all this stress for to begin with. A vicious cycle really. I do feel this album avoids the issue I have with modern metal production, making everything sound weak. Of course it could be more raw than it is, but it doesn't really need to be. The drumming sounds great. They sound like they're being hit with such fury. My major qualm with modern metal is how cushiony stuff that's supposed to hit hard is, due to production and mixing. But I don't really have that issue at all here. It actually does sound hard and dark and not weak at all. And it's funny because again, this album is mostly about pretty mundane stuff. There's lyrics about like the tightness in his chest, being poor, public transport being shit. All these little issues are built up into this peaking point of stress, and I guess that's what the album is an eruption of. Just pure bottled up stress exploding out everywhere. There are, however, some songs that deal with higher stakes things, such as Last Gasp, which is about finally being able to die. Feels like there's such a dark catharsis in the instrumentation of this one. A really twisted sense of relief, like feeling catharsis in something that you're not supposed to. He reflects in these final moments how he served his purpose in society. He spent his whole life a cog in the machine, paid for his service as if he was a product. His life defined by the act he was employed to carry out. He ends the song with this sardonic line, "I hope you got your money's worth." You know, I think this album is a very over-the-top, extreme way to depict how shit the working life can be, but it works. With Hell Medicine, we see how the endless stress and boredom of working day in, day out leaks out into other aspects of life. He turns to alcohol to cope with it and starts to berate everyone. He starts to lash out at the world. The stress of his job even destroys his free time outside of work. But truth is that alcohol doesn't help. I believe that's what this song acknowledges, but is still plunging headfirst into a downward spiral. Very nihilistic song, especially at the end here. Such brazen declarations about life being hell and that it's his God-given right to kill himself. I think all in all, this guy just needs to relax a little bit. Stop drinking, stop gambling, take a few deep breaths and just relax. No need for all this madness, really. Overall, it's a pretty good album. I can't say I'm really crazy about it, but that's okay. It's nice to hear modern metal that isn't a stinking pile of shit. So I'll rate this. I give this album 7.5 cats out of a possible 10 cats. But yeah, that's about it for this review. Subscribe to the Catman Show, leave a like, leave a comment. Goodbye.